All right, so get this, listeners. You sent in some fascinating research and we had to dive into it. It's about a potential energy breakthrough from Italy.
Italy.
Yeah, a gentle nuclear reactor. Sounds crazy, right?
It does.
That's why we're here today.
Definitely. Nuclear energy usually makes everyone think of massive power plants, meltdown, all that.
Right. But this research, totally different path.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So the article features Salvatore Majorana. He's director of the Kilometro Rosso Science Park in Bergamo.
Okay.
And he's talking about this Italian company's Prometheus.
Prometheus.
Yeah, they're the ones developing this new reactor. The big thing, it's based on LENR,
LENR.
low-energy nuclear reactions.
Ah, okay. That is where things get interesting because LENR is not the same as like fission or fusion.
Exactly.
The article actually uses a really good analogy describing LENR as a naker
Oh, I like that.
compared to like the shout of regular nuclear energy.
That makes sense. Like, way less intense, maybe safer.
Right.
And the article says this reactor just uses water, electricity, salt to make energy. And hydrogen, too.
Well, those are some big claims,
Yeah.
and the potential benefits are huge, obviously. But we do have to remember that LENR isn't widely accepted in the scientific community. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah,
A lot more research is needed, independent verification, all that.
for sure, I get that. Skepticism is, like, totally warranted at this point. But just imagine if this thing actually works.
Yeah.
We'd be talking about powering our homes, our cars, with a clean energy source. Safe, sustainable, incredible, right?
Absolutely.
And what I find extra interesting, this is all coming from Italy.
Huh, that is interesting. Didn't they vote against nuclear power?
Back in '87, after Chernobyl, yeah.
Right.
So to see something like this kind of development, coming from a country that basically said no to nuclear, pretty remarkable.
It really is. It makes you think,
Yeah?
about how sometimes scientific curiosity, that drive to innovate, pops up in unexpected places.
So-
Like a resilience or rethinking of like what nuclear energy could be.
Exactly. And the article even says that, like, despite that referendum, Italian universities, their engineers, they're still considered some of the best when it comes to nuclear research.
Oh, wow.
So then how did this gentle reactor happen in a place where nuclear power is basically not embraced?
That is a great question.
It is.
It shows that maybe things aren't always black and white.
Right. So this is where the article gets really interesting.
Okay, tell me.
It describes how this reactor, it uses an impulsive wave of energy to create plasma, but just for a few milliseconds.
Milliseconds.
And they claim this results in, quote, a gentle natural reaction without waste and emissions.
Okay. That's hard to,
Not get excited about.
Yeah. It does sound promising, but again, these are just claims.
Right.
We need verification, independent verification. We got to see the data, understand the methodology, have other researchers replicate the results, all of that.
Yeah, you're right.
Only then can we say if it's really a game changer.
Okay, I hear you. But just for a second, what if we do entertain the possibility that it all works, as they say? A clean and waste-free nuclear reaction.
I mean, that would be huge.
It would be a massive breakthrough.
It would. It would revolutionize how we generate and use energy, not just in Italy, globally.
Exactly. So who are these people, the minds behind this potentially revolutionary tech?
Let's see. The article talks about the key players at Prometheus. There's Fabrizio Petrucci. He's the majority shareholder. Then Carlo Miglietta. He's the CEO and the scientific lead. And Dario Calzavara. He's working with other technicians on the project.
A solid team, it sounds like. They've got research, industry experience, entrepreneurial spirit.
They do. And there's a detail I thought was really nice. The reactor itself, they named it, yeah, in memory of Umberto Monopoly. He was a huge innovator, a driving force behind all of this.
Oh, that's so cool that they're honoring him like that. It's a reminder that at the heart of any scientific endeavor, there are passionate people with a vision for a better future.
For sure.
So what's the timeline here? When could we actually see this gentle reactor doing its thing?
Well, the article says they want to have a prototype tested in an industrial setting within 6 months.
6 months.
If those tests go well, they think the reactor could be ready for commercial use in 3 years.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying that in a few years, I could have one of these things powering my house? No more fossil fuels, no more emissions.
It's a really compelling vision, isn't it?
It is.
Decentralized, clean energy right there in your home.
It's amazing.
But, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. There's still a long way to go, lots of hurdles, lots of questions to answer before we can say this tech is ready for prime time.
Right. Stay grounded. But it's hard not to get excited about the possibilities, especially for Italy. Imagine a country that once rejected nuclear power, becoming a global leader in sustainable energy, all thanks to this groundbreaking tech.
It would be remarkable. A complete turnaround. A demonstration of the power of innovation. reshaping not just an industry, but a nation's relationship with energy.
It's almost poetic, like a redemption arc for Italy in the energy world. But, okay, before we get carried away with the narrative, let's get back to the science of LENR. That's the foundation of all of this.
Exactly. We need to understand the science to really evaluate these claims, separate the hype from reality.
And that's exactly what we'll do when we come back for part 2.
Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deeper into LENR, remember that, and this Italian company, Prometheus, making big claims about clean, safe nuclear energy.
So before we get lost in the what-ifs and the excitement, we should probably address the elephant in the room, right?
The skepticism.
Exactly. I mean, come on, a gentle nuclear reactor, it sounds too good to be true, doesn't it?
It's definitely natural to be a little cautious, especially with something as potentially game-changing as LENR. So to really get this, we got to understand the science behind it.
Right. Okay, the science. Now, for those who might not be familiar, LENR, it stands for low-energy nuclear reactions. And I remember back in the 80s, there was all this talk about cold fusion.
Right, right.
But then it kind of just fizzled out.
It did.
So is LENR just cold fusion with a new name? Or is there something genuinely different happening here?
It's a great question, and that connection to cold fusion is definitely something we need to talk about. Back then, the whole cold fusion buzz, it was based on claims of achieving nuclear fusion at room temperature. It was revolutionary, at least it seemed that way. But those early experiments, they were really hard to replicate consistently.
Yeah.
And so the scientific community, for the most part, kind of dismissed it.
So is LENR just like a rehatch of that same idea? Or is it different?
While the terms are sometimes used interchangeably, there is a subtle but important difference. LENR research, it's continued, in the years since the cold fusion thing,
Oh, okay.
albeit on a much smaller scale. And the focus, it's shifted. It's less about achieving room temperature fusion and more about understanding how these low-energy nuclear reactions actually work, the mechanisms.
So it's more about like figuring out the how rather than making big claims about achieving fusion in a cold lab.
Exactly, and that's key because it means a more rigorous scientific approach.
Makes sense.
Instead of chasing a specific outcome, they're trying to understand the intricacies of these reactions, which could ultimately lead to more reliable, practical applications.
Okay, so let's talk about those mechanisms. How is LENR supposed to work? What makes it different from the nuclear reactions that we, normally hear about?
The exact mechanisms, well, those are still up for debate, and that's one of the main reasons why LENR is, well, still so controversial. But the basic idea, it's that certain materials, under very specific conditions, can create nuclear reactions, but at much lower energies than we see in traditional fission or fusion.
I'm trying to picture this. What kind of materials and what are these like specific conditions? What makes it all happen?
We often see metals like palladium, nickel. Often they're combined with hydrogen isotopes like deuterium. And the specific conditions, those often involve loading up these metals with the hydrogen isotopes, sometimes under high pressure or using electrolytic cells.
So it's like creating this environment, right, where these materials are basically forced to interact, but in a very specific way.
That's right. And the theory, and I do want to emphasize that it is still a theory, the theory is that having the hydrogen nuclei packed closely together, like within the metal's lattice structure, can lead to some kind of nuclear reaction, releasing energy as it happens.
But how can you have nuclear reactions at such low energies? Don't you need like crazy heat and pressure, like what's happening in the sun, to fuse atoms?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's puzzled scientists for a long time. There are a bunch of hypotheses trying to explain this. Some think that maybe quantum mechanical effects, things like tunneling, might be at play, allowing nuclei to kind of bypass the usual energy barriers.
Okay.
Others suggest that the metal lattice itself somehow influences these nuclear interactions in ways we don't totally understand yet.
So no definitive answer, huh? Still kind of a mystery.
A bit of a mystery, yeah. That's what makes LENR so fascinating, and so frustrating, too, The potential is huge if we can figure it out. But until we have a solid understanding of the science, it's really hard to judge how valid these claims really are.
So to bring it back to Prometheus and their gentle reactor, they're saying they use an impulsive wave of energy to create plasma just for a few milliseconds. How does that fit into the whole LENR thing?
It's tough to say without knowing all the specifics of their tech, but from what's in the article, it sounds like they might be using some kind of electrical discharge or pulsed power to create the plasma in the reactor.
So like making a tiny sun in there.
Not exactly a miniature sun, but they're probably trying to create an environment with very high energy densities, kind of like what you'd find in a plasma, and this intense localized energy that could be what triggers those low energy nuclear reactions, within the materials they're using.
And their claim is this whole process, it makes hydrogen, all while being, quote, gentle, natural, without waste and emissions. If they pull this off, it's like the dream, right? The holy grail of energy.
It could be revolutionary, for sure. Imagine a world where we can generate clean energy just using common stuff like water, simple metals, no radioactive byproducts, which have always been a concern with traditional nuclear power. But, like we said, a lot of work still needs to be done before we can, pop the champagne.
You're right. Skepticism is the name of the game until we have solid evidence. So what would convince the scientific community that LENR is the real deal? What do they need to see?
Reproducibility is key. Other research groups working independently need to be able to do the same experiments that Prometheus is doing and get the same energy output, the same efficiency levels.
So basically, show their work and let others double-check it.
Exactly. Transparency and peer review are super important in science, especially when you're talking about discoveries this big.
And what else? What else would they need to demonstrate?
They'd need to explain in detail how their reactor is designed, what materials they're using, the exact conditions needed to trigger the LENR reactions.
Ah, okay.
It can't just be, hey, look, it works. They have to explain why and how in a way that makes sense to the scientific community.
And I imagine they'd need to tackle the whole energy balance issue, too. Prove they're creating more energy than they're using.
100%. That's a big hurdle for any energy tech. They have to show, without a doubt, that their reactor is making extra energy that we can actually use. Otherwise, it's just not a practical solution, no matter how cool the concept is.
So Prometheus definitely has their work cut out for them. They need the proof, they need to be transparent, and they need to convince a whole lot of skeptical scientists that LENR is the real deal.
It's a huge challenge, no question. But if they do it, the payoff is massive.
Yeah.
We could be talking about a completely new way of making energy. Clean, safe, and abundant. For the whole world.
We're actually just about out of time for this segment. Before we wrap up, though, I want to loop back to something we mentioned earlier. The connection to that Italian physicist, Salvatore Majorana.
Oh, right.
I did some digging, and it turns out he was working on some pretty wild ideas before he, vanished.
Oh, he was brilliant. Way ahead of his time. Some of his theories are still being debated today.
What I found super interesting is that some of his work was about neutrinos, those tiny, almost massless particles that are so hard to detect.
Yes.
And get this, some researchers think that neutrinos could actually be involved in LENR.
It's a fascinating idea. It's still a hypothesis, of course.
So we've got this potential link between Salvatore Majorana's work on neutrinos and what Salvatore Majorana and his team are doing over at Kilometro Rosso. It's like history repeating itself, maybe? Or even like conspiring to bring about this new energy revolution in Italy.
It's a cool narrative.
It is.
And it's something we'll keep digging into in part 3 of our deep dive. We'll look closer at Salvatore Majorana's legacy, the possible role of neutrinos in LENR, and what challenges and opportunities Prometheus might face as they try to bring their gentle reactor to the world. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this idea of a gentle nuclear reactor developed in Italy, potentially revolutionizing energy. And right before the break, we were talking about the link between all of this and Salvatore Majorana.
Right, the Italian physicist.
Yeah, who just disappeared back in the 1930s.
It definitely adds another layer to this whole story.
It really does. Salvatore Majorana, he's a theoretical physicist. And his work, it's still relevant, even all these decades later.
He really was ahead of his time, a brilliant mind.
We're not talking about just like ordinary theories. He was dealing with some seriously profound concepts. Things that are still being researched today.
Absolutely. His work on neutrinos, for example, that's particularly interesting when we're talking about LENR.
Okay, neutrinos, remind me.
They're those super tiny, almost massless particles. They're incredibly hard to detect because they barely interact with matter at all.
Gotcha.
Like phantom particles just passing through everything.
Okay, so I'm trying to connect the dots here. What do these neutrinos have to do with this gentle reactor thing?
Well, there's a theory that neutrinos might actually be part of the LENR reactions.
Really?
The idea is that these low-energy reactions might involve neutrinos being absorbed or emitted. And that could explain how the energy is released, even at these low temperatures.
Okay, is there like any evidence to support that, or is it more of a guess?
It's still a hypothesis at this point, and there's a lot of debate about it, but it is a really intriguing possibility, especially since we still don't fully understand how LENR works. Maybe neutrinos are the missing piece.
That's pretty wild to think about. These particles that are like almost impossible to even find could be the key to this whole new way of making energy.
It would be a huge discovery.
Yeah.
And a testament to Majorana's work,
Yeah.
His research on neutrinos might have laid the groundwork for a major breakthrough decades later.
It makes you wonder what else he could have accomplished if he hadn't. Well,
Vanished.
yeah. But, bringing it back to the present, the Prometheus team, they have a big challenge ahead of them. They got to convince everyone that this LENR reactor is the real deal. What are, like, the biggest obstacles for them?
Well, we talked about reproducibility before. Other researchers, they need to be able to get the same results. That's crucial.
So no more secrecy.
Exactly. Total transparency is a must, especially when you're talking about a tech that could completely change things.
Right.
And they also need to explain in detail how this reactor actually works. What makes these reactions happen.
Yeah, yeah.
It can't just be, it works, trust us. They have to give the scientific community a real explanation.
And, of course, there's the energy balance thing. Got to prove they're making more energy than they're using.
Right, exactly. It's fundamental. If they can't show that their reactor is actually producing a surplus of energy we can use, it doesn't matter how innovative it is. It won't be a practical solution.
So Prometheus has a long road ahead. Lots to prove. But the potential payoff, it's massive.
It really is. We're talking about a potential solution to some of our biggest energy problems.
Yeah.
A clean, safe, abundant energy source. It could change everything.
It's kind of hard to even wrap your head around, isn't it?
It is.
That a small team in Italy might have cracked this huge problem. It's exciting, but also, a little scary to think about what it all means.
Definitely.
It's a story that's still unfolding, and we'll have to wait and see what happens next. But no matter what, their efforts are showing what's possible.
Exactly.
Power of human ingenuity, the drive to keep pushing scientific boundaries. Even if this specific technology doesn't, work out in the end, what they're learning could lead to other breakthroughs later on.
You're absolutely right.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive, haven't we? Started with an article about this gentle nuclear reactor, then we got into all the complexities of LENR, and then there's this connection to Salvatore Majorana. Brilliant guy, vanished without a trace. It's wild.
It is a fascinating story. It shows that innovation can come from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And it reminds us to never underestimate the power of curiosity.
That's how we make progress. That's how we push the boundaries of what we know and understand.
Exactly.
What I find inspiring is that no matter what happens, Prometheus, they're pushing the limits of what we thought was possible with energy, making us rethink things, look at new ways to solve big problems.
And that's so important. Science is about exploration, experimentation, constantly learning. It's not always about getting a definitive answer, right?
Right.
It's about asking the right questions, being open to possibilities, even if they seem crazy at first, even if they challenge what we think we know.
So what does all this mean for you, our listeners? It means we live in a time where incredible things can happen. Breakthroughs can go out of nowhere. We need to be open to new ideas, even if they seem, impossible at first. And we need to talk about these things, the future of energy, the role science plays in our world. Because the decisions we make now, they affect everyone. Not just us, but the generations after us, too.
We've only just scratched the surface of this topic. It's complex, it's always changing. We encourage you to keep learning about LENR, look into Salvatore Majorana's life and work, and never stop being curious about the world. There's so much to discover.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the worlds of science and tech. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep those questions coming.